question, where it's discharged. It'll discharge from our sewer plant into Leslie Run just as we do currently. It's discharging, the plant's discharging right now into Leslie Run. The first part now, what chemicals, they will test for all the VOCs. The driving force behind this plant was vinyl chloride.
So no dioxin?
I don't want to answer that question, I'm not sure.
No SVOCs? No SVOCs?
I don't.
Can we raise your hand if you have a question?
Oh, okay.
And give a name, please.
Chad?
I don't want to 100% say what it is. I know it's tested for the VOCs. Vinyl chloride was the driving force behind it.
So I'm Chad Connor, and so I have kind of a statement and question, if that's okay. We do know that, and I wrote it down to make sure that I said the right thing, sorry, so I'm going to read this part. We know that there's no technology or design process at municipal wastewater plants, including those in East Palestine, or otherwise that impacts the concentration of vinyl chloride entering the treatment plant. Therefore, vinyl chloride will be entering the treatment plant because there's no way to get it out. Also, you said it won't enter our drinking water, but our drinking water, you said, will go into Leslie Run. Leslie Run, eventually, our wastewater goes into Leslie Run, right, which will eventually dump onto the Ohio River, so it might not end up in our drinking water, but it might end up in somebody else's drinking water because people pull out of the Ohio River. So our community has been consistently put through the ringer with vinyl chloride, with Norfolk Southern. There's people here that have had so much trauma inflicted upon them that what we're currently doing, and if you guys don't know, I'm a mental health counselor, been doing it for many, many, many years. This is my world of trauma. We are constantly asking people to be re-traumatized by this. It may not be drinking water. I get that. I believe 100% of that. And I thank you for explaining the process and understanding. I thank you guys for all allowing us to have this time. But can we please think about the people? We don't know if the water floods, if we take a bunch and all of a sudden a heavy snow happens, now this ends up in basements. We don't know where that goes.
I don't want to interject, but if it's trucked to the facility, I don't know.
But it's going to go into Leslie Run, which feeds off into tributaries. This could be Medley's problem.
So what if when the test results
It
come,
could
I don't
go-
want to discuss, but when the test results come, and then the vinyl chloride's non-detectable, those test results, but let me finish for a second. If the test results are non-detectable, what vinyl chloride am I detecting?
What
Below that detection limit?
What test are you using that will detect vinyl chloride at a safe amount? Because there is known safe amount of vinyl chloride. Even in the world of drinkable water, 0.05 billion parts per million, or billion parts per unit there, is allowable in drink. And this, whatever this says, all this says, the data says it's going to be 2. So your numbers are just going to be so much higher.
I don't know where you.
2 billion parts. This
Where
is
did you come with that?
That's what the levels are going to be. That's what the testing is going to become. So whenever this goes
Where
out,
did that number come from?
this is drinking water versus wastewater.
No, I understand, but where did you come up with 2?
Science.
How do you know what they're detecting in their test results?
How do you know the number's gonna be 2?
Yeah, how do you know that the detectable
How do you know
limit
the
when they
test
test for vinyl chloride is 2 when that lab runs their particular test?
This is nationwide standards. This isn't.
But that's a standard that is held. So 2 is the limit for vinyl chloride being safe. Is that what you're saying?
9.05.
Okay, 0.05. But you don't know what they're detecting.
But what's your
So it could be
detection?
0.01.
Does your wastewater treatment test for vinyl chloride?
No, I don't particularly test for
You
vinyl.
exactly, because you don't have to, right?
You're correct, yeah.
Exactly. So you're following your policy. That's not a problem. The problem is there's no way to get vinyl chloride out, so it is in there. And so if it ends up in Leslie Run, which it will, because that's where we go out of, right? That's where
Yeah,
we
correct.
push it. It will end up in somebody's drinking water. It will end up in anything that's pulled out of the Ohio River to make product will be put into product. So even though this might not go into ours, it will end up somewhere. And we have to live with that. Our children have to live with those decisions that we make. And we are traumatizing this community. Why are we even having a conversation about taking vinyl chloride water?
Because we don't know it has vinyl chloride in it.
I understand the monetary side of things. I understand you say it doesn't because nobody says that you have to test for it. But you have to listen to science. Science 100% says that there is no way to pull vinyl chloride out. It's a forever chemical.
Just 1 second. We are testing for vinyl chloride. That's what the test,
He just said they want testing.
he said they.
I'm not, no, this test results on this particular water is tested for vinyl.
It is tested for vinyl
I
chloride
don't
according
test
to
my
according to a standard, and they're going to get it down below. And they're going to get it down below that standard, right?
Right.
But that standard, they have found that there is zero, I'm gonna give the,
Chad, I think your issue is more so a vinyl chloride as a US
There is-
national standard issue, rather than a particular issue to our.
there is zero chance it's coming out of the water. Zero.
But what if there's none in there to begin with?
There-
There's benzene.
That's what got, it's what got dumped here. We know that.
But if it reads non-detectable, how can we say it's a joke?
So, let's put all this stats aside. Why are you re-traumatizing people over and over and over again? We have to have this meetings. Look, people are here because they're concerned. This is trauma. There's media here that's going to report on it. It's trauma. Why do we consistently re-traumatize people? Get the Norfolk Southern, I don't care about any of that. I care about the trauma that's happening here. People are getting re-traumatized every time a train goes by. For some, not all. I get that. But this here, you guys are for the people. Can we just quit with this wastewater? Can we quit with anything that has to do with anything that has to do with train derailment? Can we just stop traumatizing people and make decisions for the people?
Can I ask you a question?
Mm-hmm.
Norfolk and Southern is going to be removing this from the site regard. Where would you suggest they put it?
In a facility that can handle it.
Are you saying that we, one at a time, please. Are you saying that we are unable to handle it?
I'm saying that our community has a responsibility to its people to stop traumatizing them. So Eric, you said that anybody can do this. If we can do it as a small community, the better people would be the larger communities, right? You said Norfolk Southern doesn't need us to do it.
No, but listen, so I'm here as the water and wastewater superintendent. I do what's best for the community. I live half a mile up the range. My job is what's best. I think this is a good opportunity for the water, for the wastewater department.
And
that's why I'm here.
And I appreciate
That's my reasoning,
Yeah.
100%.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate the work you do with all of that. My concern has nothing to do with you or your decision.
I think your
to do
concern
that.
is more of a vinyl chloride as a national issue rather than just particular here. And I understand
Well,
your
that
trauma.
would- that
We've
would
all
be-
been through this.
That would be my wife's job. My job.
I don't know
is
who
to
your wife is.
make- My job would be to make sure that our people are not traumatized. The resiliency center's going in here. My center is the one that's going to be ahead of that. We are going to work with the traumatized people. We are doing that now. There's people that are traumatized from all of that. And all we're doing is constantly talking about this. I don't care about the money. I don't. I really don't. I care about the trauma. Does anybody up here care about the trauma?
Residents that pay a water bill might care for it.
I pay a water bill, used to pay a water bill. I
Do
don't
you currently pay
that.
one in town?
No, because
Okay,
I
well,
live outside of town.
this prevents a lot of rate increases for future mandates that we are given through the Ohio
Yeah,
EPA.
I understand that.
Okay, so,
But
I don't agree with what you just said.
I understand, but there's people that do pay a water bill that are traumatized.
I agree 100%, I'm sure. We're never all gonna agree.
Thank you for your
Absolutely.
Jamie, would you like to say something else?
I just wanted, Jamie Wallace, I just wanted to say, what I don't understand is if there's a 1 in a million chance that this can add to the burden of our streams, when you talk about reportable levels, if we already have vinyl chloride in our stream and we throw more on top of it, or more benzene, or any of these chemicals, can our streams hold that burden? And if there's a 1 in a million chance that this would contaminate creek water in Negley, that would run into their wells, why are we taking that chance for money? These are human lives. Any chance is too big. And until you can show us what all this is being, tested for, I mean, who was consulted? Did you consult a scientist on the testing that's gonna be done and whether or not is relevant testing, is it the best up-to-date testing? I mean,
It's the same,
Who did we
the
confer with?
testing on this water is the same testing that we are currently doing on our wells at our water.
But did you
treatment.
confer with any independent scientists as to what taking this wastewater?
No, I look
could
at the results and
possibly
compare them across.
be? Okay, but I'm asking you, have you?
No, I have not.
So, do you have a degree where you're knowledgeable in these chemicals?
I have Ohio EPA licensing and experience where I have to pass certain tests. After experience, they issue me a license after I pass it. Listen, let me finish. Where I pass the test, they give me a license. I have
Right.
CEUs, just like any other job would have.
So is this hazmat?
Why would it be a no, it's
I'm
wastewater
asking
and
you.
water treatment.
Okay, but with these types of chemicals, you've been trained on all that. You don't think that you should confer with any?
I look at test results, and if they come back where it's okay for them to discharge this as a wastewater to another facility, and that would bring us into the game if we do this, I would look at those results that I would
Right.
see and say, okay, yeah, we can take X
So
amount,
this is
or
just
no, we
based
can't
on-
take any.
This is just based on you? You didn't consult with anyone else?
I've consulted with the Ohio and US EPA to get
Okay,
this.
that's what I'm asking,
Yes,
if you've
yes,
consulted.
yes, absolutely.
Okay.
The plant had to get
And
approved
even if
before
it's,
even
okay,
doing it.
let's just pretend like this is 100,000% safe. Just the fact that you have people in your community, like you said, that have been traumatized, that already don't feel safe, you think that that monetary aspect of it is more important than our mental and physical health?
I'm presenting an idea to our council.
Okay, I was just asking. to
And I'm
make
just,
sure.
and I'm just saying, I'm presenting an
Right.
idea to our council that I think, as the water and wastewater superintendent for the village, that's what I'm doing.
Okay. As a resident, I just don't think we should put any kind of risk, even if it's a 1 in a million risk on our children, even if it's to lower our water bills.
Mr. Uriel.
Scott, John Uriachi. The testing methods they use, are they standard methods? From the book of standard methods, which is the holy Bible of testing throughout the whole country.
Yeah, and they're doing the same, it's the same lab, the results that I saw in the email, it's the same lab that Norfolk Southern is using. When we test the water plant that we've done.
Which would might be standard method 45B.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
We would also be doing our own independent testing.
I think we could get with Ohio EPA and, supplement some more testing, just to make sure we're prepared. Just as we.
We're not just relying on them.
No.
Is there gonna be a final plan before it's actually, like, are you gonna roll out a final plan before it's decided on? It should have all that, like, exactly what all chemicals are being tested for.
Yeah, I mean,
And the
that's
whole
something
route.
that's something
There's already a plan.
I'm sure that's something that you could get right now off the US EPA website or Ohio EPA website, as they offload,
Scott, is this gonna be a separate permit?
No.
It's gonna roll into your permit now?
Sandy Waggle, my only question, I understand the technology, is this a long-term thing, or will eventually the water stop flowing through? Because we're at, what, over 4 million gallons now, ship this has, now they're treating.
I'm not sure of any date on it.
Okay,
It won't be a forever thing.
it will be forever?
No, it won't.
Oh, won't, okay, thank you.
Temporary, but I don't know that.
Okay.
It could be a couple of years, it could be 6 months.
I'm Lee Dyke. Is there vinyl chloride in the water that you're gonna take?
No. The results that I,
There is none.
the results that I saw were non-detectable.
There's
So it was not,
there's no vinyl chloride in this water.
the results that I saw were non-detectable.
Where did it go?
I
It doesn't go away.
don't have the answer.
I know you don't. That's what I mean. Why should you take this water if you don't know what's in it?
I look
If there's
at,
little bit, that means more for Negley. I don't think it's right. Ship it. We didn't ask for it. Ship it away. They brought it to us. Let them get rid of it. I think that's only fair.
I'll just make one more point, if they don't ship it to us and we don't take it, then it could feasibly go to a wastewater treatment plant that's still upriver buses could still impact.
Yeah, I mean, we discharge the as they run.
Right.
Which in turn, ends up in the Ohio River, where East Liverpool discharges. Buckeye Water pulls their drinking water from the Ohio
So
River.
these places could
This-
already be
This
taking
piggyback
it into-
is all the way down the Ohio River.
Go ahead, ma'am.
I'm Heather Van Tassel. I'm not here necessarily to tell you what to do, but I am here to propose some questions that I think everyone should be thinking about. There's a lot of talk about the financial, benefit of accepting this wastewater. There's going to be potential long-term consequences that are going to have huge financial burdens on this community. One is that if you do want to do additional testing to make sure that the water you're receiving from Norfolk Southern is indeed at the levels that you say, it's expensive. Very, very expensive to test, just for one thing. Two, you will be discharging wastewater, right? That opens you up to Clean Water Act violations. And as a municipality, you are able to be sued from citizens about what you discharge into the water if it exceeds your permitted limitations. Another thing to consider is that this wastewater treatment facility was not set up necessarily as an industrial wastewater facility. So what are the long-term impacts of continued use at this capacity in this area? So long-term stewardship of this facility might be very expensive. You might be replacing parts much more rapidly. You're going to need more staff. You're going to have to continually do testing. You're going to have better communications with your community members. All of these things have costs that are maybe more than the benefit that you're receiving. You all should be able to share with the community before having a meeting like this what the actual plan for testings are, what that's in the water, so that way they can also see what they're not testing for. And if it's non-detectable, what are those non-detectable limits? Because non-detectable does not mean there's nothing in it, but rather that based on their certification level of that lab, that's where they can confidently say whether or not it's in the water, which is very different than zero. There's also this idea that discharging higher volumes, even if it's completely clear into these small streams, will not cause harm to the environment. But the organization I work for, Three Rivers Waterkeeper, has done sediment testing in the streams around here, and they're highly contaminated. Whether that's from Norfolk Southern or other industries of long-term past, that's another question. However, when you disrupt sediment, that's all going back into the water. That's all going downstream to our Ohio River neighbors, and that is not fair either. So when you're thinking about accepting this waste, think about the unintended consequences that are going to be coming from a small facility accepting large amounts of waste that are directly connected to many community members that are going to be impacted. You should also give a very detailed description of what you're going to do to the community so that they can be here and show up and informed, and maybe not say things that you're saying, don't worry about that, don't worry about that, but actually you can answer those questions definitively. They can do their research before coming, so maybe they're not asking what you think might be silly questions because they already have the answer by something you provided them. So just think about what the real consequences are, what you do know and what you don't know, and what that might look like for the future of this community and our Ohio River friends.
Comment on that. You had mentioned detected levels versus zero levels. How do you detect zero?
Well, that's the thing, labs can't.
Absolutely.
So
what do you propose that we test for other than what
you
the
have to be
detected levels
okay
are?
with the detectability levels. So some are very high. Like you can have really high levels of something and it come back as non-detectable. So that's just something.
Excuse me?
Yes, it depends on your lab equipment. So you have to know what your labs.
Laboratory error on their part. I've been doing this for 45 years. I'm a certified chemist. Trust me, if you have non-detectable levels and you even think there's something in there, you must have duplicate samples on them, retest for it, to make sure that it is zero or non-detectable.
Every lab has different levels, and it varies.
Absolutely, based on their equipment. But they also have detectable levels that are required by the EPA to monitor for those levels that have been deemed by the EPA and other CDC and other organizations that these are acceptable levels that are out there. You go out and breathe the air. You tell me there's nothing in the air? Not just here, anywhere. You go out into the streams. You tell me there's nothing in the streams? I'll disagree with you.
Well, that's fair. Just share that detectable limit with the community.
The detectable limit is whatever the laboratory provides for us. I do not have that number right offhand.
But I think it's fair for the community to have a plan and see that limit, what that detectable limit is.
Yeah, so there's drinking water detectable limits.
So they have a chart.
I could look, if I pulled up the analytics that I got on one of the test batches that was
I'm
done,
just saying.
I can see the detectable limit, whatever their detectable limit is versus what the result is. And I don't know offhand, I'm not gonna say numbers based on any of the compounds that were tested for, but from the results I saw, everything was non-detectable, so it's in the on the result.
Right, so like, there's an acceptable limit, and that's standardized for all drinking water and all water, wastewater in the country.
Yeah, there's a
So-
monofluoride limit.
So say like, here in a city in Florida, like, those limits would be the same, what is considered standard or acceptable.
Yeah.
So if you're over that limit, then obviously it's not safe or acceptable, right? But if it's under that limit, then it's safe and acceptable, and that's standardized, so it's not, you can have different labs, but they still have to abide by the standardized limits.
Well, yeah, the limit's the limit.
Right, so it
It-
doesn't
and
matter
like
what
Doug
lab
just-
you use, a limit is a limit, a reading is a reading, so.
But like Doug just alluded to, when you get to such small amounts,
Right,
it becomes instrumentation.
right.
So that's where some lab might
So
be able
like
to
parts per
measure.
billion, parts per trillion, like.
One lab might be able to measure down to 2 parts per billion, whereas another lab might only be able to measure down 5 parts per billion. I don't know.
But I guess what I'm asking is if, I'm just gonna use random numbers, say the acceptable limit is 2 parts per billion. The lab that you use to do detection on your sample has to be able to measure that level, right, parts per billion?
Yeah.
You can't, so when you're comparing parts per billion and parts per trillion, that's very different.
Oh, yeah,
number.
absolutely.
So you could
They're
have-
all gonna be measuring in. let's say,
Right, so you
parts per
you have to be able to measure within.
This water's held to the drinking water.
In the back, sorry.
My name's Austin Huffman, and so you're gonna accept them what the EPA deems as safe for our facility discharge in the Leslie Rock, but you have the capability of being even more strict on those levels. So I was wondering what maybe is acceptable to you, maybe stricter than the EPA, or maybe.
Absolutely. So like, to me, I would want to see something that would be non-detectable. So let's say, and I'll just use the vinyl chloride, for example, and I'm gonna just make up numbers. Let's say they have 5 parts per billion. From a permit standpoint, they're okay, so they can offload it to somewhere else. I might see that number and say, no, I don't want anything to do with that, and ship it away. I only want non-detectable limits. Thank you.
But you said that you're not testing for biofluoride.
No, I'm looking at the results off of what they would send out.
Sure, so if they're not, they say they're testing for biofluoride, and to Jessica's point, like if it's 2, parts per billion, and their instrument only, to Doug's point, only goes to 3 parts per billion, it'll say non-detectable, correct?
Yeah.
So if they come back and say, yeah, there's no vinyl chloride in this, and you're not licensed, or you're not certified, or you're not going to, because you're not required to test for vinyl chloride, then how can you deem the water safe if we know there's no known safe level of vinyl chloride, and you're not testing for it, and they're just saying it's non-detectable, but their instrument only detects to this amount?
They're not using that instrument, they're detecting farther than that.
So, but
That's made
there's,
up.
that's not made up, actually, it's science.
Why would they use the instrument? that's
Wait,
not
I got one
detected?
question. So the EPA,
Come on, you don't miss-
what's his name?
I do live here.
Bill.
Bill, sorry, Bill.
That's okay.
It's because I don't play water.
You're saying we're allowed having how much vinyl chloride in our water? What's the detectable limit? What's the no limit? What's the limit you think the highway cases?
So the detection limit for methods that everyone's using standard is 1 part per billion. The drinking water standard is 2 parts per billion. So our detection limits are below that which is safe for drinking water. I've already talked with Scott. We are going to sample your effluent weekly for the organic scan. So a scan includes a whole bunch of chemicals above and beyond vinyl chloride. So we're not just, we submit for the whole scan, and that's what they're doing. They've been doing that in the streams since February. We'll test for both the plant effluent here and at the wastewater treatment plant. So the pre-treatment system, they have a port where you sample the treated water. So we've already been out and done our pre-discharge sampling for Scott. When the first time we talked about it, we wanted to make sure we got some samples of the wastewater plant. And then once this would start, so if you folks approve it, they still have to get a permit from Ohio EPA as an industrial user. So this is they wanted to make sure the village was approving anything before they apply to us. And if that happens, then once the discharge starts, we will be out weekly testing your effluent in the wastewater plant. In addition to that, they're testing this stuff every day. So they're testing the effluent from the plant, and when Scott mentioned those tanks, that unit is a batch, and they're testing that in multiple tests to confirm that above and beyond. Vinyl chloride is the target compound, but everything else is being treated.
So, but with that testing, still you would say that you would agree that there's no way to get 100% of the vinyl chloride out. There's no known technology to do that. So we're just talking about the technical limit, not actually.
I don't necessarily agree with that. Our activated carbon and air stripping, which are both employed here, remove organic chemicals from the water. So I can't say I agree with.
You've been doing your job how long?
35 years.
I'm trying to put credibility with it.
No,
I don't
yeah,
want
no, that's fine. I just want to retire.
But science it out there is that.
I just,
Okay. Jamie.
no, I won't.
My point is just the fact that we have to have the EPA stand up here and explain this, and that people that are making these decisions to put this water into our streams are not making the decisions. You're asking us to once again trust the EPA, who your own Inspector General said has given us reason
Well,
not.
he's from
to
Ohio
trust.
EPA.
Okay, but it doesn't matter. The Ohio EPA, we can talk about that too. How were they able to cover up those burn pits with the Ohio EPA?
let's-
Not the-
we're
But
getting-
I'm
We're
saying,
not,
okay,
we're
that's
not
fine,
talking
but I'm
about
saying.
that. Please
this
stay
is
on
not-
subject.
Okay, but what I'm saying is the fact that you have to ask the EPA shows that there's not enough knowledge by our local water plant to be taken these chemicals. How much exactly are you gonna make on each truckload?
You just,
Have you,
Sorry.
and have
Is
you?
there anybody else have a question?
You can't answer my
Okay.
question?
First of all, one, it's not going to the water plant, Washington.
yeah, please stop
Never
using
going to the
drinking
water
water.
plant.
I'm not, okay, it's not.
But you said
drinking.
water, but that's two separate things, so I'm
Yeah.
gonna say that you don't understand the
I am
process.
not
It's
making
in
my
two different
decision.
areas.
But you're pretty much just told me I don't know how to do my
Okay.
job.
No, I'm saying when you have
Okay.
to ask the EPA,
Yeah, well,
that's a reason
please,
for concern.
can we move on?
I can't finish answering my question, my questions are
But
important.
now, well, at this point, when you keep trying to get off the diatribe, yes, they are not.
I wasn't getting off the diatribe,
You
I'm
most
saying
certainly
when you
were.
have to
When you
ask
brought up the
somebody.
EPA and burn pits, Jamie, you're getting off subject. Can we
Well,
move
you're
on?
telling me
to
I
something?
have to
Everybody.
trust them.
Let's get
This
back
is
to
what I
something.
didn't want this to.
I know.
to.
Okay.
Wait, you don't want public
Okay,
opinion, you
no,
wanna do whatever you
let's
wanna
go.
do. Kick
I'd like
me
to
out,
make a
I'm tired of listening to it.
I'd like
Why
to
don't
make
you
a
guys
motion.
work for the people? That's your job, not Norfolk Southern, not the EPA. How about that?
Thank you, Jamie.
Money is not worth our kids' lives, I don't care if it's 1 in a million.
So we should burden another community?
Am I saying burn another community? I'm saying, how do you know our creeks can take this burden? We already have heavily contaminated creeks. They have not even tested the sediment yet, so why are we putting the cart before the horse? Why is this even being considered when testing is not done on our creeks? Why is it so unsafe you have to send a dog into the tunnels
Can we please get
and
back on
people
subject?
can't go into it?
Please.
Exactly.
Is there somebody else?
Get back to the community making money off of
Is there a
people's
resident of
lives.
our community would like to talk?
People's lives!
I had a question. My name's Dave DiPillo. It seems to me this whole proposal was money oriented, okay? So let's take personal things out of the equation and look at it this way. I I think, and I could be wrong because I'm not a lawyer or anything, but if the village approves this, does it not take the burden of liability off of Norfolk Southern? Say 5 years from now, if someone's well leaches down the stream and gets contaminated, and someone gets sick from it, and someone dies from it, are they going to come back on the village, or are they going to be able to go to Norfolk Southern? I think it takes the liability away from Norfolk Southern and brings it all onto the village. I could be wrong. I don't know. Has that been thought about?
We would have to ask council. I would think that, if we're saying the EPA and other people are saying this is a safe process and they're going by their limits, it would be hard for them to bring suit against us, but once again, I'm not a lawyer either, so I don't know, we would have to,
I mean, I'm not saying it's not a safe process. It may or may not be. I'm just looking at it from the terms of, is this village prepared for the possible onslaught of lawsuits that could happen to it 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Just looking at it from a money standpoint, which I don't think is the most important thing. I think the people are the most important. But it is something to consider, and I just wanted to know if you'd thought about that.
Our legal counsel and Norfolk Southern's legal counsel are in discussions related to what you're talking about.
Okay, that was my question. That's all I wanted to know.
Yes.
Thank you.
My name is Bennett Bruno, and I was just wondering, does Norfolk Southern, the water that's being shipped out, does Norfolk Southern have to stipulate where their water came from, or what could possibly be in it, to these other communities that are going to get it, or haven't get it?
yeah.
There is what's called a custody sheet. It has to tell you exactly where it came from, when it was sampled, how it was shipped, when it was shipped, temperature it was shipped. The receiving person or a treatment plant has to sign off on it that they will even accept. So it is tracked from beginning to end.
And one good thing is Scott has total control over everything. So he can stop it at any point.
Yeah, and look,
if he doesn't like the test result, he can say, no, we're not accepting this load, and make them ship it somewhere else. It's not, for the results I've seen, and by no means am I a chemist or licensed wastewater person, but I don't think the contamination levels are that of what they were at one time. They are very low. A lot of it's just rainwater. It just happens to be touching the ground that was once being contaminated. Most of the contamination is cleaned up, so it's pretty much just muddy water. I mean, let's face it. So it's just rainwater, the majority of it. And if we thought it was a hazard, I don't think we'd even be having this meeting. But we wanted, to have an open public meeting so people could vent their concerns. We could have just passed it and been getting checks for the last 6 months or 6 months.
Right. Since the gentleman from the EPA, I'm going to use your own words. Go for it. The standard has always been once water, whether it be rainwater, groundwater, anything else that's into the sewer system, it's sewer.
Correct.
Same thing with this. Once the rainwater hits and it goes into a contaminated ditch, it's contaminated water.
Correct.
Whether it has anything in it or not, that's why you do the testing to qualify or quantify what exactly, if anything, is in it. Is that correct?
Yes, so the hazardous waste rules are very confusing. And in this world, specific to what we're talking about, the cars that contain vinyl chloride, when they burst, the ground that they touched now became hazardous waste by definition. The water that touches the ground that the vinyl chloride touched is hazardous waste by definition. Even if there is no vinyl chloride in there, it is hazardous waste by definition. So where we are today is all that waste that has been excavated, and it was over 100,000 tons of material, that is hauled offsite. So that, if we're thinking of a source, that was the source. That was where when the train cars burst, that was where the material was. It has been excavated. They are confirming through now the confirmation testing that those materials are no longer in the remaining soil because they've excavated down. If they detect those again, they're going to excavate more. At some point, when US EPA has said you are done excavating and all the tests confirm that there's no more material, the rainwater that touches it that is now being collected as hazardous waste will become rainwater again and allowed to resume its normal course rather than being collected. So we are not at that point yet. So this material is collected. Whether it has any contaminants in it or not, it is still managed as hazardous waste by definition until US EPA removes that definition saying it is not. So we are at that confirmation sampling. Independent of that, it is still managed and considered hazardous waste. If there is nothing in there, it is still a hazardous waste, even if it's pure rainwater. That's where we're at right now.
Hi, Melissa Smith. I have a question regarding the way that our tributaries flow through the state of Ohio. I'm assuming that is it the Ohio EPA that does consistent testing of those tributaries over, do you do them every year? Do we have baselines for where the Ohio River was, where Leslie Run was? We have those. And so I'm assuming that that is currently being tested, not just here, it's being tested further downstream. And so those would have to, if something were to change, we would be able to catch that quickly. Am I right? Like, we had when she brought up the history of having legacy contamination in our streams and rivers, that's a big deal. And yeah, this was kind of on top of it, but I would assume that we're creating a paper trail per se that we know where we were, we know where we are, and if something happens in the future, we would catch it, I would hope, quickly. Is that accurate?
Yeah. So Ohio EPA is the lead state across the United States in biological and ecological assessment of streams and creeks. So when the US EPA and other countries model their programs, they use us. We were the first state to actually have criteria for biology. In the mid-'80s, the first time we came through and comprehensively looked at the watershed of Little Beaver Creek, Leslie Run, for intensive purposes, was mostly dead. Because of all the things going on in the community, historic issues with the wastewater plant, the scores, biology scores, were on par with the Cuyahoga River and the Mahoning River at their very worst.
Right, Burning River, correct?
Correct. Sulphur Run, that you call, in our world, it is unnamed tributary to Leslie Run at River Mile 3.37. But Sulphur Run, we redesignated as something that we got rid of our biologic expectations because the impact of the structural change, the culverting, the straightening of the creek was so great that it took away that stream's ability to ecologically be healthy. We've sampled several times over the years, and most recently last year. So that was luck, not planned. But that Leslie Run now is ecologically recovered.
And so are there, is the Department of Wildlife going to continue with testing, with the fish and the game and the deer and whoever the wildlife are that are drinking from these creeks? I mean, are we keeping track of that for the future?
So the Ohio EPA looks at the ecology of the stream, and to do that, we look at the fish communities and we look at bugs, macroinvertebrates. We did that last year, so we have this reference. It was done this year, and actually the stream has recovered. So when the spill happened, we can agree that there was a complete fish kill in Leslie Run. I don't even think we don't need there probably was someone that lived, but for intensive purposes, we'll say it was a complete fish kill. When they went back this year to do the ecological testing, Leslie Run and Negley was actually higher scoring than it was when we did it last year. But ecological communities are very resilient. So we're seeing that with the macroinvertebrate, they were sampled, but over the winter, just because the identification of those things is a little more timely. That we'll get those scores in, and then eventually I'm gonna say in February, March, we will have an ecological report, and then everyone will see what those test results are. But we're pretty comfortable that that creek has recovered. There will be testing next year. Ohio EPA is gonna go back and retest all the sites we did in 2022 in 2024, just to confirm that that recovery has happened. But in the ecological world, you know, this was a spill, good, bad, or otherwise. That it was a discrete event. It went downstream, caused an impact, and Mother Nature's recovering. Sampling for the water chemistry from here down to the Ohio River had been done daily since February. And right now, we're starting to see some of those sites where nothing showed up for months, like the Ohio River and Little Beaver Creek. Those sites are now being able to be dropped from continued monitoring. But everything down to North Fork, Little Beaver is still monitored. And so and the sediment has been monitored. The sheen has been monitored. Those sample results, as far as what's in that, because we don't know, those results are coming in, and we're talking hundreds of sediment samples and hundreds of sheen samples.
I think there's a fear from the community that people will look at it as, oh, well, they're wrapping it up and there's not going to be a continued presence, maybe that.
Well, you want them to wrap this up really fast because you
Yeah,
want that
the disruption.
event taken care
Right.
of. But the ongoing monitoring,
Monitoring.
there will be monitoring for many years to come here, in the streams, in the water plant. Like what we're talking with Scott, the partnership we have was that we're gonna provide for free the organic sample analysis. Because that was something when Scott, when we first started talking about that, it's like, I can help. And that is one way we can help and remove some fiscal burden from the
Much like the
village.
water treatment plants.
We've also,
Yeah, we've been doing the same thing at the water treatment plant.
we've been promised by Governor DeWine, Ann Vogel, the Director of the Ohio EPA, and Michael Regan, the Administrator of the Federal EPA, that any testing we feel we need, they will work with us and help us facilitate that, especially for what's happened here. If we think something's not right or we're not happy with something, they will, continue to be here for many years to come. So
Thank you.
I'm very confident that, if there's ever an issue, we just make a couple phone calls and they're here testing. Yeah.
I just want to say one last thing. I just want to say thank you to the council, thank you to Chad, welcome, thank you for welcoming me at. Thank you guys for having this. I'm definitely not questioning anybody's job or anything that you guys are saying. This community, I think, you see the signs, you talk to people, I talk to a lot of people, we're concerned about that continued theme of, profits over people. And this, as we said, is a profitable thing. As you said, you guys could have just started this without even talking to us, which means you guys understood that this is a controversial topic. And so I just ask you guys when you're talking about it, if you could just think about people over profits first. And if you feel that that money's really gonna outweigh the trauma that could happen to some, not all, I'm not gonna say it's the entire community. And you guys feel that that outweighs it, then that's fine, that's why you guys are in the position you're in. But I just, please think about people before profits, and if profits swim, I guess profits swim. Again, thanks for holding this, I appreciate it. Just by nature, it's obviously controversial, so.
Thank you. We have time for one last comment before we have to adjourn for the next meeting. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming. Make a motion to adjourn.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn our meeting.
All in favor? Opposed?
Thank you all for coming.
Sure, but go ahead.